Welcome to the deep dive. You send us the sources, the articles, the notes, and, well, we dive in to pull out what really matters, the surprising stuff, and help you see how it all connects.
And today we're looking at something, deeply unsettling that happened recently in Bangladesh.
That's right. It involves a true giant of global culture. We're talking about the vandalism at Rabindranath Tagore's ancestral home, specifically the Kutchery House in Shahjadpur, that's in the Surajganj district.
A place with huge historical weight.
Absolutely. So our mission here is to unpack the material you've shared. We want to understand exactly what went down there on June 8th, 2025.
What happened right after, too?
Yep, and the bigger picture in Bangladesh, why the specific incident matters so much, why it's causing such, significant concern, not just locally, but really around the world.
And the trigger, the starting point. That's almost mundane, which makes the outcome even more shocking.
It really does. It shows how quickly things can spiral, especially when tensions are already high.
Exactly. Everyday friction igniting something much bigger.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Take us back to June 8th, 2025, Tagore's Kutchery House. What exactly happened?
Well, what the reports describe is a mob attacking the site, a historic site.
A mob.
Yeah. And the details are quite disturbing. We're talking shattered windows, furniture inside smashed up.
Damage inside the actual house.
Inside the building, yes. And maybe the most chilling part, there were reports of people shouting objectionable slogans during the attack.
Objectionable slogans. Aimed at Tagore, presumably, or what he represents.
That seems to be the implication, yes. And the catalyst for all this, the spark. It seems almost unbelievable, really.
What was it?
It apparently started with a simple dispute. A parking row.
A parking dispute, seriously.
That's what the sources indicate, between someone visiting the site and an employee at the museum there. But that argument didn't just fizzle out.
Clearly not.
It escalated fast. Others got involved, and somehow it transformed into this mob that turned its anger onto the Kutchery House itself.
Wow. A parking argument leads to vandalizing a national treasure. Because this isn't just, any old building.
Oh, absolutely not. The Kutchery House in Shahjadpur is incredibly significant. This was one of Tagore's main bases in what was then East Bengal.
Right, he spent a lot of time there.
He did. Managing family estates, yes. But much more importantly, it was a place he worked, where his creativity just flourished.
He wrote major works there.
Timeless works.
Yeah.
Collections like Chaitali, Sonartori. These are penned there.
Wow. Pieces that are just fundamental to Bengali literature.
Exactly. And, beyond being his writing space, the site is just so deeply tied to Tagore's connection with Bangladesh itself.
The national anthem connection?
Precisely. He's revered across the region, obviously, but for Bangladesh, Amar Sonar Bangla. It's their national anthem. It was a rallying cry during the 1971 Liberation War.
A symbol of their identity.
A powerful one. So to see a place in Bangladesh so intimately linked to his life, his work, where that creative energy was flowing, to see that place targeted, it's incredibly potent. Painful symbolically.
So the attack happens, the damage is done. What was the immediate official response? What happened on the ground right after?
Well, the first thing was they shut the museum down indefinitely.
Closed it to the public.
Completely closed off. And the Bangladesh police, they did file a case about the vandalism, which, is the necessary first step. Legal action.
Okay, so a case was filed. Any arrests?
Well, this is where it gets a bit notable. What jumps out from the information we have is the timeline. As of June 14th, 2025, that's several days after the June 8th attack, there were no reports of any arrests being made.
None at all. Nearly a week later.
None reported in the period we looked at, no. And this lack of immediate arrests stands in contrast to an official statement that came out from the Bangladesh Foreign Ministry.
What did the statement say?
It expressed that Bangladesh respects Tagore's huge contributions to their culture and heritage.
Okay, so words of respect.
Yes, words of respect. But the commentary we've seen points to this perceived gap, a disconnect between the statement and the lack of concrete follow-up action, like arrests. There was one analysis that used a really sharp analogy. It said, this situation respecting Tagore in words while his attackers are seemingly still at large. It's like saying you love your grandma's cooking while you're, tossing her recipe book in the fire.
Oof. Yeah, that analogy definitely hits hard. It really captures that tension, doesn't it? Rhetoric versus reality.
It does. And it raises that key question. Is this incident actually being treated with the seriousness it deserves, given who and what was targeted?
The indefinite closure, the delay in arrests.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder.
It suggests to observers, at least, that the response might be falling short.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting and maybe more worrying. The sources you shared suggest this wasn't just a random, isolated incident sparked by a parking issue. It seems to fit into a larger, more disturbing pattern in Bangladesh.
Right. This is where we have to zoom out a bit.
What does this attack on Kutchery House tell us about the broader situation there?
Well, the analysis connects it to the context since the government changed last year, since the fall of Sheikh Hasina's administration back in August 2024.
Things have been unstable since then.
The period since then has reportedly seen a significant rise in incidents targeting minorities. It's a worrying trend.
How significant? Is there data on that?
There is. And it's quite stark. We saw a reference to a Bangladesh police report. It detailed 1,769 incidents targeting minorities recorded just between August 4th, 2024, and, well, around the time this material was current.
Wait, say that number again. 1,769.
1,769.
1,769 incidents in roughly 10 months.
That's staggering. What kind of incidents?
Serious ones. The descriptions include temples being torched, homes looted, entire communities being terrorized, according to the reports.
So this is the backdrop. This is the environment the current interim government, the one led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, has inherited. And the sources really emphasize the huge challenges they face trying to manage this surge in intolerance and, frankly, violence.
Okay, so if there have been nearly 1,800 incidents targeting minorities, why is this specific attack, the vandalism at Tagore's home, being called out as a new low?
It comes down to Tagore himself and his unique status. The analysis stresses he's not just a Bengali icon, he's a global symbol. Humanism, peace, culture.
Nobel Prize winner way back in 1913.
Exactly. But maybe even more crucial in this context is his deep cultural connection to both India and Bangladesh. He wrote both national anthems. He's a bridge figure.
So attacking his home is like attacking that bridge.
That seems to be the interpretation. It feels like a direct assault on that shared heritage, on the secular values he stood for, on the very idea of cultural pluralism that he embodied. It's seen as moving beyond attacks on specific religious groups, though those are happening too, clearly. But this targets a symbol representing something broader, the intertwined cultural identity, the secular ideals that have, historically at least, been part of the region's fabric. It hits differently.
Let's dig into that symbolism more. Why this site, Tagore's home? What's the message being sent by choosing this specific place to vandalize?
Well, according to the interpretations we're seeing, the choice feels anything but random. It seems quite deliberate.
Deliberate how?
It signifies an attack on those core ideas. Tagore represented shared identity, secularism. Remember, Tagore was this incredible polymath.
Yeah.
Poet, novelist, playwright, composer, philosopher.
Gitanjali won him the Nobel, brought Bengali literature to the world stage.
Right. And his time at places like Kutchery House wasn't just admin work. It was intensely creative. And his role in Bangladesh's identity, as we said, Amar Sonar Bangla, not just an anthem, but a liberation war rallying cry, a song for an independent, inclusive nation.
And his whole philosophy was against narrow thinking.
Fundamentally.
Yeah.
He rejected narrow nationalism, rejected religious dogma. He was about a universal human experience.
So the attack.
The analysis suggests it could be seen as a direct attempt to undermine, maybe even erase, those secular and cultural ties connecting Bangladesh and India. There was one metaphor used that really stuck with me.
What was it?
That it's like someone trying to scribble over the good parts of a shared history book, targeting the bits about connection, art, universal values.
Yeah. Wow. Scribbling over history, that paints a vivid picture. It suggests this is more than just violence, it's ideological, trying to rewrite the story.
Exactly. And comparisons were drawn to tactics seen elsewhere, particularly Pakistan, where cultural sites, minority religious sites, have often been targets for extremist groups.
So a similar pattern.
The perspective presented is that these aren't just about destroying property. They're attempts to erase identities, rewrite narratives, sever those cultural links by attacking the physical symbols, targeting Tagore, who stood for secularism and cross-border culture. It serves a very specific and, chilling purpose in that view.
Given Tagore's immense stature in India, too, their national anthem author as well, what was the reaction from across the border, from Bangladesh's neighbor?
Swift and remarkably unified is how it was described, which, isn't always the case in Indian politics.
No kidding.
Leaders from the ruling BJP, the opposition Congress Party, they all condemned it.
Any specific names or statements?
Yeah, the reports highlighted India's External Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar, calling the vandalism deeply regrettable. And opposition figures like Rahul Gandhi were mentioned as publicly condemning it on social media.
And the Indian public, how did they react?
Social media lit up. The hashtag Save Tagore was apparently trending on X around June 12th.
What kind of sentiment?
Shock, anger, some strong language was used. One post described it as evidence of Bangladesh's radical rot affecting Tagore's legacy.
So it goes beyond just Tagore.
Yes. The concern in India, as we understand it, is deeper than just reverence for Tagore or sadness about a cultural site. It's seen in the context of, well, already somewhat strained ties, fueled mistrust between the two countries. Attacks on shared symbols like this, they can really impact the bigger relationship. We saw mention that India already had concerns about minority safety in Bangladesh. Apparently, it came up in talks between India's foreign secretary and officials in Dhaka back in December 2024.
So this just adds fuel to that fire.
Exactly. It heightens those existing concerns, adds another layer of tension.
Okay, so let's bring it back to the current situation in Bangladesh. What does all this mean for the interim government, Muhammad Yunus's government? What do the sources suggest needs to happen next?
Well, the difficulty of the situation they inherited is definitely acknowledged. It's incredibly challenging. They came in after major political upheaval. There's this undercurrent of anti-India sentiment in some parts of society. The influence of certain political parties is a factor. Even Sheikh Hasina's presence in India is mentioned as part of this complex mix.
A tough hand to play.
Very tough. And we saw examples cited, like the government canceling August 15th as a national day of mourning for Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. While maybe meant as a nod to certain public feelings, some saw it as potentially fanning divisions too.
Tricky balancing act.
But the core argument coming through is that governing, especially now, needs more than just navigating politics or putting out statements. It requires making hard choices, taking decisive action.
The message is they must act.
That's the strong message, yes. Dhaka must act.
Okay, what specific actions are being called for? What's on the urgent to-do list based on this material?
Very concrete steps. First, and this seems paramount, arrest the vandals.
Yeah.
Those responsible for the Kutchery House attack need to be found, charged, and face legal consequences. Justice needs to be seen and seen swiftly.
Makes sense. What else?
Second, reopen the Kutchery House Museum. Keeping it shut effectively lets the vandalism win, lets it silence the site. But, and this is crucial, reopen it with better security. Enhanced measures to prevent it happening again.
Protect the site going forward.
Exactly. And third, think beyond just this one site. This incident should be a wake-up call. Other heritage sites across Bangladesh are potentially vulnerable too.
A broader effort.
Yes, the suggestion is maybe create a dedicated task force, something focused specifically on safeguarding these cultural landmarks.
What about public perception, changing attitudes?
That's the fourth point. Engage the public. Launch a cultural campaign celebrating Tagore's legacy. Get schools involved, artists, influencers. Actively promote cultural appreciation as a counterweight to intolerance.
And the wider issue of minority safety.
That's the fifth and maybe the most fundamental point, linking back to that shocking statistic. The government has to dramatically improve minority safety. With nearly 1,800 reported incidents since August 24, there's a clear need to crack down hard on hate crimes and really work to rebuild trust with those communities.
A lot on their plate.
A huge amount. But the material is emphatic. These aren't just suggestions, they're presented as essential actions. The warning is stark. Ignoring this, failing to act decisively will just let things get worse. Like, ignoring a leak in a storm. It won't fix itself.
And the responsibility doesn't just lie with the government, right? The sources point to a broader role for society, even the international community.
That's absolutely right. There's a direct call out to the people of Bangladesh. Tagore was a voice for freedom, for dignity, for harmony. His legacy should inspire action now.
How so?
The material basically asks the citizens, what kind of country do you want? One where mobs can erase history, dictate culture, or one where culture is protected, a source of pride and unity?
A fundamental choice.
It is. And the point is made, being outraged on social media is one thing, but it's not enough by itself. People need to actively stand up, support efforts to protect these places, protect the values they represent.
And the international community, what's their role?
The call there is for more than just expressing concern. Action is needed. UNESCO, for instance, they've recognized Tagore's work as intangible heritage. They're mentioned as an entity that should use its influence, pressure Dhaka to take real steps.
And India.
As a close neighbor with those deep ties, India is encouraged to keep up diplomatic pressure, while maybe also offering practical support. Help with restoration, preservation efforts, perhaps. The core idea is the world can't just watch another invaluable cultural site fall victim to intolerance and mob rule.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's really clear. This incident in Bangladesh, sparked by something almost absurdly trivial, a parking row, it pulls together so many complex threads.
Heritage vulnerability, political instability, social tensions simmering just below the surface.
And how conflict can erupt in these unexpected, incredibly damaging ways.
Yeah, and it really underscores the high stakes. This wasn't just smashing windows. It was an attack on shared heritage, on secular values Tagore championed, on a symbol of unity connecting people across borders, across faiths.
A lot at stake.
A huge amount. But, even in this pretty bleak picture, the material finds a sliver of hope. It quotes Tagore himself.
What's the quote?
"Faith is the bird that feels the light when the dawn is still dark."
Powerful.
Bangladesh is definitely facing some dark challenges right now, but the suggestion is the country that drew inspiration from Tagore in 1971 for its liberation. Maybe it can draw on that same legacy now, fight for its soul, its future.
And there's that stark irony, too, isn't there?
Yeah, the irony of a Nobel laureate's home being attacked while the country is under an interim government led by another Nobel laureate. It just highlights the layers of complexity, the paradoxes here.
It certainly leaves you thinking about how fragile things are and how crucial it is to actively defend the values we claim to hold dear. So, drawing on that final thought from the material we explored, here's something for you, the listener, to consider.
Will Bangladesh manage to protect Rabindranath Tagore's incredible legacy and the values he stood for through real, concrete action? By safeguarding its heritage, actively promoting tolerance?
Or will it face the potentially grim consequences of letting mob rule and intolerance carve out its future path?
It's definitely a moment that calls for much more than just words.
Indeed. That's been our deep dive into the troubling events surrounding Tagore's Kutchery House in Bangladesh.